Do you ever say yes to things that you know you shouldn't say yes to, but you say yes anyways because it's a shiny, bright object and it just sounds so delightfully good that you just can't resist? I do that too. And today I'm giving you a little story time behind the scenes of my most recent screw up where I said yes when I should have said no, and all the lessons that I've taken from it because I know you're going to resonate with the story and hopefully you'll be able to learn from my ridiculous mistake or at the very least feel a little less alone. So here's story time. In my business, I have been thinking about expanding in a new direction. And I have been so proud of myself for not burning down my current business, which is actually working really well, but instead just being curious about what would it look like if I added this thing, what would go away. Like snaps to me for being so mindful about how I'm approaching this exploration, right? So as a part of this experience and to flesh it out a little further, I went to this 1 hour mastermind for people in my industry. And I shared the vision that I had and how I thought it was going to work and what I thought it would do for my business. And I asked for feedback from the group and I got great feedback. And at the end of the session, one of the two people that was hosting the mastermind said, "Would you mind staying on the call?" So I said, sure. So I stayed on the call with this person who I know briefly. Like we've been in a cohort together. I don't really know them personally, never met them in person. And this person tells me that her and the other person that's hosting this mastermind were actually thinking of doing the exact same thing. In fact, they have already started a project and would I be interested in joining them? So I want to pause there because this was the moment where my ADHD got the better of me. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. I want to join you guys because they're both very nice. I knew this one gal slightly, and the other one I only just met that day, but she seems super cool too. So I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. So she gave me a little bit of background on what they had done so far, and we had decided to meet up as a threesome and just discuss, where they were and whether or not I would join them. So we did that. We got on a call. They walked through all the things that they've done. And in my mind, I was thinking, wow, these guys are thorough. They were really methodical about how they were building the business and creating it from the ground up, which was smart because they were a partnership as opposed to the way I like to do things, which is like building the plane while it's in the air. Let's just say that. So my first indication that I should have said no was that their style was very different than mine. And that's okay. Their style was great. My style is great. They were very different. I did not think about that, or if I'm being more honest, I did think about it, but I ignored the thought because my internal voice was being overshadowed by my ADHD brain. So we decided on that call that I would join and we would become a partnership. And at that point, we started scheduling all these various different strategy meetings and talking about how we were going to build the business. And it was awesome. It was fun. It was that shiny, sparkly thing, right? And I had given myself the role of project manager because you guys know I love me some Notion. So I took all of the great work that they had done so far, the extensive, detailed work that I would never have done myself, but it was so good that they did it. I took all of that and I put it into this shared Notion space where I set up folders and color coded everything. And it was awesome, even though the whole time I was thinking, wow, I would never think of approaching a business like this. I would do it differently. And it felt a little queasy that I was taking on a process that didn't really align to how I do things, but I wasn't paying attention to it. I was paying attention to my ADHD brain. So we continued having our strategy meetings, and I was starting to feel a little uneasy because the way that they did things was, again, the right way, but not my way. And when you have ADHD, you kind of have to do things your own way, which is why I love being a solopreneur. So anyways, fast forward, we're now weeks into this process. And the first indication that I should have picked up on was the style of how we work. The second indication that should have occurred to me at the time, but it didn't, was the amount of time it was going to take for us to actually build an entirely new company. We were all entrepreneurs with our own practices, and those two also had a separate project together. So they had worked together in the past and they knew each other's style and that sort of thing. I was coming in as a third party to this new project, and it really wasn't until I would say about 6 weeks in, we were having a meeting talking about roles and responsibilities within the new organization that we were building. Finance, legal, operations, marketing, branding, all of the various things that would center around the service we were going to offer. And as we were going through in detail all of these various positions that we would need to own until we grew big enough to outsource, it really started to hit home like, wow, we're creating a whole other business here. This is going to take a lot of time. What the hell am I doing here? The other thing that started to occur to me was one of my guiding principles, which had clearly slipped my mind throughout this entire thing. That is, less is more, simple is better. I am always looking for ways to simplify business, to take steps away, to take things down to what is essential and remove all of the fluff. Now, not to say that we were engaging in fluff in this business, but my guiding principles were not their guiding principles. They had different visions for what was essential and what was not essential. And had I actually thought through the fact that I was getting into business with two people I had never met in person, yes, then maybe I would have thought about styles and temperaments and the way we do things, but I didn't. So it wasn't until that last meeting we had together where we were talking through all the roles and responsibilities that I had a come to Jesus moment that I had no business being a part of this partnership, that I was already struggling to do all of the things in my own business. What the hell was I thinking getting involved in another project where we would be creating an entire company from the ground up? So we got off that call and I felt like I had swallowed a bowling ball. There was just this feeling in my gut like, oh crap, I have yet again said yes to something I had no business saying yes to. And now I knew I needed to backpedal. Now, another interesting nuance in this story. At that time, when I was feeling like, oh crap, what have I done? I went to two people that are very close to me, two people that I love, that I had originally spoken to when this opportunity first came up. And when I first told them about the opportunity, they were like, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Like you always say you want to collaborate more and you like the structure of people around you. So yeah, that's a great idea. Good for you. Woo woo. And now that Snizzle's getting real and I'm talking about legal and investment and all of these various different elements that are going to go into the business, naturally, I go back to these two people to share with them the angst that I'm feeling. And they're like, what? You're going to start a new business with people you've never even met before? What are you thinking? And it's like, hello, I told you all of this at the beginning and you were either not really understanding the context or not realizing this was actually going to go anywhere or not really paying attention. I don't know what the situation was, but now that I'm about to embark on something really big, I'm starting to get completely different feedback. And the frustrating piece about that was not that their tunes had changed or that they were giving me different feedback now. I was frustrated that originally when I was feeling a little uneasy about the decision, but they were both so confident there was such a great idea that I prioritized their reaction over what was going on inside. And I am so angry with myself. If I had listened to my own voice as opposed to outsourcing the decision to the people around me, I would have made a different decision from the get-go. But now I was in a position where I needed to backpedal and tell these great people that there's no way that I can commit to this. And I felt horrible, but that night I sent them an email. I explained the whole situation. I told them the truth. I had no business doing this in the first place. I just really wanted to work with y'all and I have to step away for the benefit of my own business, my own mental health, and my own well-being because I do not have the time or bandwidth to actually follow through on what I agreed to. Fortunately, these are both amazing people, so they understood. They also both have ADHD. So they understood the impulsive reaction and the excitement that I had and the reason why I had to pull back. So as I look back at that experience through the lens of ADHD and how that got in the way, I realized that number one, I wasn't listening to my own gut. Number two, I wasn't being honest with myself about how much time and energy I had to dedicate to something new. Number three, I also outsourced my better judgment to the people around me. And number four, if I'm being very honest with myself, my people-pleasing nature was getting in the way. I knew in that moment I had to say no, but I didn't want to. What I did know is that if I didn't say no right then and there, we would travel down this road further and it would eventually implode because I would need to back out after we had invested more time, money, energy, reputation, and that would have really sucked. So in retrospect, as I look back at that situation, I wish I had said no from the beginning, but that didn't happen. And I have to give myself compassion and grace because I'm still learning. I'm still on this journey. But I also want to commend myself for having the courage to finally look at the reality of the situation and having the courage to say no when I knew I was going to be disappointing other people, which is the hardest thing in the world for me, and being honest about it, about why I couldn't follow through and why I had to disappoint them. Once I did that, I felt so much better. And I'm so grateful that I did it before things got really entrenched and there was money and time and energy and reputations invested in the process. We were still in the strategy stage. So at this point, they can go on and continue with their project. I will go on and continue with the project that I was originally thinking about, and we can collaborate, and all is good and well in the world once again. So I wanted to share that story for a couple of reasons. First, because I think there's a great lesson in there about listening to your gut. I also think there's a great lesson in there about having guiding principles, which I did, having guiding principles in a place where you will check in with them regularly. So now that is in my weekly planning process. I'm looking at my guiding principles and making sure that I'm making decisions that are aligned to them. And I also learned that it's a good idea not to just casually bounce ideas off of people and take their reactions as the right way, as opposed to looking internally and thinking about what was best for me, my energy, my style of working, and how I wanted to actually execute this. So that is story time for today. I live to tell about it. So I would love to know in the comments, have you gotten yourself into a situation like this? I'm going to assume you have. But what I would like to know more importantly is, what is a lesson you have taken from those situations that you're going to use in the future to ensure that you don't say yes when you should say no next time around. So on that note, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.